Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Mark from the States. How we doing today? I am doing fantastic. I hope you are as well. Today, we're going to look at another castle. I love looking at the castles. They're really cool, and they're just chock full of history, so that's what we're here to do, is learn. And this is coming from a channel called Untold Past. And we've done another video of his on Corf Castle, I believe is the one, and he even commented on that video, and so that's always nice to see when the original content creator comments on his own video that we do, and it's wonderful because it gives me at least the feeling that they're okay with it. I asked him if there's any issues, just let me know. And I'm very skittery now with copyright strikes out there and all that business, and so I'm just kind of trying to stick to people who, one, have really interesting and fun videos to learn from, and two, that I get the impression, or I've actually physically corresponded with them, that they're okay, that we learn from their videos. So please, number one, first off, please support Untold Past and all his videos. Go like, subscribe his channel. He's got a second channel too, called The Fortress, and there's a lot of interesting videos on both those channels. So yes, please go and support him and their endeavor. Thank you for coming to watch this. If you've seen this one before and you've come back, awesome. If this is your first time, cool. We get to watch something new together, and something hopefully we get to learn from. So, big fake couch, you know what to do. Let's do it.
One of England's most strategically important castles sits high above the southern coast, overlooking the English Channel. Dover Castle is an impressive and dominating structure and fortification that has a remarkable history. Throughout its lifetime, it stood taller than the Nazis, outlasted some of history's most important and notorious kings, and seen off the threat from Napoleon. It really is an amazing castle. Join us today as we visit its history and show you around the incredible Dover Castle. Remember, if you do enjoy our videos, please support the channel by subscribing.
Go support his channel,
The site of
please.
Dover Castle has been occupied for millennia, with an Iron Age hill fort being established centuries before the medieval castle was built. Today it still contains the Roman lighthouse and the Anglo-Saxon church, and more on these later. Soon after the Norman conquest of 1066, the Normans built a castle on this site in order to help William establish his control further over the south of England. It's during the reign of Henry II that the castle began to take shape that it is recognisable for today. Morris the engineer was the man in charge of building the keep, and the king spent over £6,500 on the castle. This is a huge amount of money, considering his annual revenue was around £10,000. During the First Barons' War, a group of rebel barons invited Louis VIII of France to take the English crown. His army had some success in breaching the walls of the castle, but could not take overall control. During this siege, the English defenders were able to tunnel out of the castle and attack the French from behind. The castle remained an intimidating proposition for anyone living in the local area. Under Henry VIII, he improved the defences of Dover and even visited the castle for a personal visit. During the English Civil War, it was held for the king.
I'm going to pause it there. Wow, look at that view. You can see the strategic importance of it just from this angle right there. And I have to say, out of all the castles I've seen so far, this is the one, when you think of castle, in my opinion, when I think of castle, that's what it should look like. You know, it's that traditional, stereotypical castle-looking shape, high on a hill, and yeah, impressive. Very cool.
But taken by parliamentarians without a shot even being fired. A local merchant managed to scale the cliffs with 10 men before stealing the keys from the porter's lodge before a garrison of soldiers could arrive. Towards the end of the 18th century, Massive rebuilding took place at Dover Castle during the Napoleonic Wars. Extra gun positions were created at the castle and all across the town of Dover. Dover became a garrison town and there was a need for barracks and storerooms for the troops. For this, a complex of barrack tunnels was created. These were about 15 metres below the cliff top and first accommodated troops in 1803. With the outbreak of the Second World War, Dover would become integral again against invasion. In 1939, the tunnels were converted into an air raid shelter, then a military command shelter, and finally an underground hospital. In May 1940, Admiral Sir Bertrand Ramsay directed the evacuation of troops from Dunkirk from his headquarters in the cliff's tunnels. Following the Second World War, the tunnels were used as a shelter for the regional seats of government in the event of a nuclear attack during the Cold War. This plan would later become abandoned. This is where we begin our tour of the castle. Upon visiting the castle, you are drawn to the huge hill that the castle sits upon. The imposing Constable's Gate was the entrance that we used. The Constable's Gate has been the castle's main entrance since the early 13th century. At the time, a solid bridge structure was created to span the moat, with a gate or barbican on the outer side. Under this, a tunnel was dug through the chalk leading to the sally port. This house and residence was used as a house for the Constable of the Tower and was later given to the Deputy Constable. Today it is still the official residence of the Deputy Constable. The Bailey is the heart of the castle. Inside the Bailey would have been many different structures. There is documentary evidence that states that within the Bailey there would have been a great hall, a number of royal chambers, and also a chapel. The inner Bailey also housed a brewhouse, a bakehouse, and stables. This would have been a hustling and bustling place with many people working hard for the castle's custodian. The Church of St Mary in Castro is the largest and finest Saxon building in the whole of the county of Kent. The church as it stands today dates back to around 1000 AD. It was intended following the Norman conquest to serve the people of the castle. Throughout its history, it's fallen into decay a few times, however has been restored also. During the Napoleonic Wars, it was used as a court for a game similar to the sport of squash. Later on, it was used as a military or garrison church. Interestingly, in the nave, we were shown some Crusader graffiti that exists. This showed a boat, a horse, and 3 circles symbolising the Holy Trinity. The Roman lighthouse that sits next to the church is known as a pharos. It is an octagonal tower that would have been twice the size as it is today, as the rocks were used to rebuild part of the church. It acted as a lighthouse, helping Roman sailors navigate safely across the channel. Another one of these stood at Western Heights. Stay tuned for our video on this amazing fort. Dover Castle's keep is rather phenomenal. It's one of the greatest intact keeps in the whole of England. Built in the 1180s by Henry II, its square turreted design stood as a statement to possible invaders of England. The keep acted as a symbol of the king's power and might. In 1480, Edward IV made the castle a bit more modern to make it a royal residence. This 4-storey building has only really 3 stories inside it, with the top story acting as a dummy story. On the ground floor of the keep, you are taken into the pantry. Although set up like a kitchen, there is no evidence for anything but a pantry or storeroom being present on the ground floor. Just off the main room, you are taken into a smaller chamber that has a rather impressive and huge bread oven inside it. Inside the pantry area, beer barrels and wine would have been stored, ready for a banquet fit for royalty. At each corner of the castle is a series of staircases that lead you further up the castle. These are rather large staircases, and you can imagine they would be bustling with people when the king would be visiting. The outer room on the first floor has been set up as if Henry II is in residence and is set up as a banqueting hall. Around the outside of the room, you can see vast decoration that would have lined the walls, including the insignia linked to the king. You can also see grand pottery in silver that would have been used by the king, connoting a sense of grandeur. The king's chamber is another large room. This chamber is where the government business would have been carried out in the 12th and 13th century. This room would have had more restricted access than the hall in which dinner would have been served in. Only the king's closest advisors would have been able to see the king here. Servants would have been close on hand in separate rooms, though, to tend to the king's every demand. The wardrobes that lead off these rooms are extremely grand. These would have been vast rooms in which clothes would have been stored and also where people would get changed. Inside this room, the king would have had attendants who would help him and the queen choose clothes and get dressed. The king's hall was a large room in which would have been used for different purposes. It could have been used for great pomp and ceremony and also for dining. A number of members of the household could have even slept inside this room. The roof of the keep offers some amazing views of Dover, the Western Heights and also the English Channel.
That's incredible.
It's incredible at the top of the keep, and you can really see why the castle was built upon this hill. You have an amazing view of the local area and also of the sea, should anyone be invading from the channel. Outside the keep, the King's Gate offers a much more private entrance into the castle. The King's Gate is an impressive alternative gateway to the main castle. It also has a barbican here in which guards could be stationed within. Also around this part of the castle are a number of different towers that could have been used for defence. One example of this is Godfrey's Tower, and there would have been guards stationed here to keep an eye on the town below. One of the most incredible parts of the castle is the medieval tunnels that exist under part of the bailey. A series of tunnels would link up to different areas of the castle's defences. These tunnels also house sally ports and side gates, which would allow a garrison to mount counterattacks within. In the 19th century, the tunnels were amended after it was realised by William Twist, a military engineer and lieutenant colonel, that the defences in this area of the castle were the weakest. This part of the castle was amended to have many different firing positions that could be used to fire upon enemies easily. The eastern defences offer amazing views of the port of Dover. The Fitzwilliam Gate is named after the 15th century constable, and this is in the middle of this section. The Avranches Tower was part of the original curtain wall and dates back to the 12th or early 13th century. This tower has 2 tiers of arrow loops in groups of 3. Walking around the battlements, you come across a number of different anti-aircraft emplacements that date back to the...
It's amazing that, here we are talking about this ancient structure, and then we just also happen to have World War II gun emplacements. And like he mentioned earlier, possible use for, the Cold War with the tunnels and whatnot. It's just amazing.
Second World War. There are a number of guns that are still housed at Dover Castle. Also, there are a number of magazines and stores for ammunition located next to these guns. The officers' new barracks were constructed between 1856 and 1858 and were used as accommodation for 45 officers. Since the Army's departure from the castle in the 1950s and 60s, this building has remained vacant. The fire command post was used in the First World War by officers to spot possible enemy aircraft. Adorning the walls are a number of different posters that can be used to spot Zeppelin airships and other bombing aircraft. The World War II tunnels that exist at Dover Castle have a rich history. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to film inside these, however there are over 4 miles of tunnels. They were used as a secure naval headquarters and, as mentioned earlier, served a number of different purposes. The hospital tour offers a view of what life would have been like during those days in which the tunnels were used as a medical facility. Also, they were used by Bertrand Ramsay to supervise and oversee the withdrawal of troops from Dunkirk. Overall, Dover Castle is an extremely impressive castle. Its rich history is one that spans thousands of years, and it tells a story of the defence of the nation. Its importance as a fortification is extremely valuable to national security, and it's clear that even up until the Cold War, it was seen as an extremely important place. If you haven't been, you must visit. However, we recommend more than one day to explore the whole castle, including the wartime tunnels. Thank you once again for watching. To support the channel, please subscribe. Thank you once again.
So please subscribe to The Untold Past. Please go to his channel, like the video, watch the original video. It all helps him. Very interesting, his castle videos. This castle was impressive. Absolutely impressive. One, that it's still largely intact. It's incredible. And the multiple uses over the years, over the centuries, I should say. This was very good. I don't know how many castles combined, between the medieval times all the way through World War II, and there can't be many of those. And and then on top of it, the coup de grace, the cherry on top is that view. The view from the top is incredible, and yeah, so wild. Very cool. So please support this guy's video. Thanks for coming and learning with us today. How many of you have been here? I'm sure a lot of you have been to Dover Castle. So I would like to visit, of course, one day. Who knows? If could be soon. Who knows? Fingers crossed. But yeah, thank you for coming along and watching this with me. I hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. And we'll see you again. I hope so. Take care. Bye.
Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark. And he's from